I'd forgotten how much I liked it. You do a slightly different version when you storytell that, don't you?
I do, because it has the treble repetition structure. It's quite a different story. You strip out all the literary stuff, and I think that one ends with her going down to the dark-haired dancing master's house.
This is some more medieval dance music.
Christmas, wow, fantastic. We're playing, medieval dance music, medieval Christmas music this time. And also, earlier we played something from Cecilia Bartoli, who's absolutely amazing. She was featured on Radio 3 recently, and she does castrati roles. And these were young men in the Renaissance period who were castrated in order to keep their voices. And she actually sings in that range. She is quite extraordinary and amazingly popular. And we played a track from her castrati album, which is called Sacrificium, because obviously these children, really, its lives were sacrificed to music. That's quite an extraordinary tribute to them.
You are listening to Whitsitt the Oar Presents, and this time I'm going to give you the genuine Dickens story. This is the second of his great Christmas tales. I love this one because it's so political. I don't know if you've been feeling that there's a strange atmosphere around, a bit penny pinching. Time, I think, for this story. Loud the bells sound of Nicholas the Avenger, the old medieval church, up there in the city wall. Louder they sound in the little houses, the many little houses gathered around the church. Loudest of all, in the house of old Toby Trotter, called Job Trotter, because that was what he was, just a messenger. And although many men said the bells were haunted and there were demons in the sound, old Job Trotter, he loved it. They seemed to him to ring out blessings, and he would listen to them of an evening. He's hurrying home, through London's dingy streets, goes up, lights a great fire, puts a bowl of tripe on, turns and reads, lights candles, starts to read the only things he can ever afford. Yesterday's newspapers. Oh, and such things I read there are too many poor, they're breeding too fast, there's too few rich, they're going to be taxed too much. Oh, I read that welfare is down and taxes is up, there's waves of immigrants taking jobs. Oh, such things I read. Oh, I read that aspirin cures cancer and aspirin gives cancer. Oh, it quite makes you despair. It mistakes you despair to be poor and to be alive. And he sat there morosely, looking into the fire while the tripe boiled, and he waited. Sooner or later, there was a loud, joyous rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, there on his door, and his daughter, Meg, a pretty girl, who never lost her Devon accent, came by and said, "Oh, Dad, what are you doing reading newspapers, and what are you doing looking in the fire this way?" And he replied, Oh, Meg, if only you knew the half of it, you would be so grim." And Meg laughed and put the newspapers in the fire and then said, "Oh, Dad, and New Year's Day too. New Year's Day's tomorrow. This is New Year's Eve, and I got something really happy to tell thee. On New Year's Day, me and my wretched, we're going to get married. We're going to have the reception here in your house. We're going to sweep it all out, and I got some caterers coming round, and we're all going to make merry." And old Job Trotter said, How How can you do such a thing? How could you get married on dire economic circumstances like this? You'll probably have children. You'll end up on welfare. Oh, woe is me. And Meg laughed in his face and said, oh, nonsense, Dad. Richard and me, we love each other. He's just a come-in. And indeed, there was a scraping sound coming up the stairs, and Richard came in. A tall man, with a somewhat purple nose. Perhaps it was the cold. He came in and brought with him a great black bottle full of strong spirits. Well, the tripe was ready to cook. Meg brought out a loaf of black bread, and they sat down to the spirits and waxed merry and long. Well, when the meal was quite over, there was a loud bang, bang, bang on the door, and Job Trotter said, oh, there'd be a job out there. And he went in, and he let in 3 people. The first was the famous Mr. Cute himself, a merchant banker and a magistrate. The second was a thin, spare man. In his pocket there was a slide rule. And behind them, not quite coming in, was a kind of man who's all nose, aristocratic in a seat. As they came in, the thin, spare man suddenly sniffed and said, what's going on here? And Mr. Cute said, what's wrong, Mr. Filmer? And Filmer said, well, these are paupers eating tripe. Oh, that I have lived so long that I see paupers eating tripe. Why, what's wrong with tripe? I'll tell you what's wrong with tripe. It's the waste. Think of the money that was spent on raising that cattle to make tripe. Think of all the money that was spent on butchering it. All the energy spent on cooking it, just so that you could have tripe. Oh, that our economic system is so wasteful that we allow the poor to eat tripe. Well, what should we eat? You, sir, should eat bones. It is the only sensible thing for you to eat. It is the only way to rescue our economy, to stop debt spiralling. Bones, sir, and perhaps old bread. And just then, Mr. Archibald sniffed too. And Mr. Q turned to him and said, what is it, Archibald? And Archibald said, I don't care for all this talk about money. Money is vulgar. But I do agree the poor have got beyond their station. We've educated them beyond their means. We should just have charity schools. In some boroughs or not, but the real education can carry on in public schools. The world of blazes and caps, of Latin, of education for life, and the discipline that went with it. That wonderful discipline that knew how to punish. The merry gallows with the joyous Mr. Ketch. Oh, that the liberal establishment has hooted them out of existence. It quite saddens and exhausts me. Mr. Cute said, well, I'm quite with you there. I work hard all my life. I work hard, I'm good at my job, I'm a banker. If I'm paid £5 million bonus, that should be up to me and my employer. What right has a government to take away for all of it, or half of it as they seem to want to do in a tax, just to help these paupers out to buy tripe and be educated? No. But now at least it will stop. I have a letter here. Can you take it to a certain eminent politician? You'll know the door, the black one. Go and take it to him and see what he says. I'm sure he will pay you, Job Trotter. And off Trotter went, through London's dingy, snowy, cold streets, that New Year's Eve. All the way he went to a certain famous black door, and the black door was opened by the eminent politician, and the eminent politician read with happiness and chuckled when he read Mr. Cute's letter and said, oh, this is what I've been talking about. This is my vision. This is my community. This is the society I am going to make. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to abolish everything that holds a man down. All the pesky constraints of local government, local democracy, funding bodies, arts council money. We're going to get rid of them all. In its place, we're going to set up charity boards governed by the great and the good. Those 3 worthy souls of yours have just agreed to take over all the welfare in London's streets. They will be in charge of finding out the needy and the unneedy poor, in combing through, finding out who we give money to and who we let starve. And a mighty fine job they will do on it. But I suppose I'd better pay you. As it's New Year's Eve, perhaps I should pay you well. Perhaps I should give you a soul. No. If I give you a sovereign, you'll only get greedy, and you won't know how to spend a bob. Here's a farthing for you. Off you go, my good pauper. And off Job Trotter went, through London's dingy streets. Well, he was halfway home, when suddenly a man accosted him and said in a wild Devon accent, hello, is that you, Job? And Job looked at the man. He didn't recognise him, or the pretty girl by his side. And he looked and looked harder, and then suddenly he said, hang on, is that you, Miles? I thought you lived down Exeter way. What are you doing down in London? Suddenly breaking into a more Devon accent in memory of his childhood. And Miles said, well, yeah, it's true, I used to live down in Exeter all my life. But last autumn, I was caught up in the thresher machine and lost the use of one leg. So they sent me on. They sent me to London. I got to go to one of the charity boards run by Mr. Q. But I tell you what I was worried about. I was worried about the workhouse. What do you think will happen to me? I think I'd rather stay begging on the streets than go to the workhouse. What was Mr. Cute like? Do you know the gen on him? And Job Trotter thought and wondered what to say. And finally he said it. Well, if it was up to me, I wouldn't go to Mr. Cute. You stay on London streets. You and... Is that your niece?